build progress, future plans and even inspiration from a steam railway. It's all in this one, my summer update. Hi, welcome back to Chadwick Model Railway. I'm Charlie. Now before we kick off with the summer update, I'd just like to bring your attention to the Hornby magazine awards, because once more there is a YouTuber category and I'm one of the nominees. It is quite a fierce arena really. There's normally 10 YouTubers and competition is quite fierce. But if I can rely on your vote, perhaps if you enjoy the channel, that would be very much appreciated. There should be a link up here, and if that doesn't work then please use the one down in the Show More tab. And if you're going to get the Great Electric Train Show where the awards are announced, hopefully I'll see you there on the Saturday or the Sunday morning. Now back in the spring update I sort of showed you the progress and in particular my plans for the Traction Maintenance Depot, the TMD. And during that video I sort of set myself guidelines that I wanted this particular board to be finished by May, this one by June, this one by July, and so on and so forth. Now I had quite a few comments of people coming back and saying, Charlie, what an excellent idea. And it's because if you set yourself real hard line goals, you tend to achieve them. If you go to your railway room and just think, well, I'll fix that coupling and fiddle around with this, and you don't actually achieve much. So to that end now, I'll just run through what my perception is here on my birthday in September on my plans for the next few months up to the end of the year. Now here's a quick recap on the branch line area. It's made of two boards. This whole board here and this one here. This one is easily removable and will remain that way for many months. This one is also removable. It just means taking off 4 bits of track and undoing some cables, and then the whole thing can come out. And I want it like that so, because as you can see, it would be very, very difficult to lean across and do the ballasting and the street work. So I can take this out and put it on a bench when I do the more serious, the serious detail stuff. So that's the way it's going to progress. What I have done since the last video is in this area here I've installed a KD solenoid uncoupler, and as you can see with this little TTA wagon, when I press this button the KD coupling moves into the uncoupling position, and it's all done with a solenoid based in this area here. If you don't know anything about KD solenoid uncouplers, there should be a link here to a previous video when I installed 2 over by the bulk fuel depot. And here's the control board with the timer mechanism. Now you may be aware of one of my previous mistakes when in this area I didn't install a head shunt. So whilst trains could deliver goods wagons into this area, it would kind of snarl and block up and you couldn't actually move the wagons around to shunt, things like the brake vans out of the way and then bring the wagons onto the platform in the goods area to have their cargoes unloaded. Right, so we now have the head shunt, and as you can see I've installed some buffer stop lights around the layout. The ones here are a little bit too bright and they'll need a resistor just to bring those down. Now in the signals video, which was it was an incredible video to be put. The video wasn't incredible, the reactions were incredible because there are so many people involved professionally in the trade, both drivers, guards, S&T folks, that came in with wonderful sort of bits of advice and documentation and everything else, and put me straight on the head shunt ground signal. An epic discovery in my mind that the signal stays in one position, so stuff gets shunted into the head shunt and back. But when a train needs to leave onto the main line, what happens there, and the signal changes, and we'll go and take a look at that shortly. Now, a couple of weeks ago, Margaret and I ventured down to Swanage, and instead of seeing these illuminated type ground signals, there was an old disc signal again for a head shunt. And if we take a look at a little bit of footage of this wonderful steam engine going out, and then I can show you the shunt signal. And once the train had left, I spotted this signal in the distance. And here it is, and as you can see, the bar's horizontal, meaning the access to the head shunt is closed. Now let me show you a little bit of movement in this area. Down the other end, just by the viaduct there, I have a high mech pulling 9 wagons and a brake van. And the wagons are kept in blocks of 3, we call them triplets, which I've mentioned before, an excellent way of doing things that I learned at McKinley. So if we bring the high mech up and we'll pop it in to this, the arrivals and departure line. And then once it's in position, energize the solenoid, and there we have it. Now hopefully you can see our newly installed head shunt signal, which for my era shows white and yellow, meaning the head shunt is accessible. So with my little teddy bear shunter, we shall put a couple of wagons up into the head shunt. Our high mech hauled goods train has been reconfigured and is now ready for departure. But first, the point needs to change because it's currently protecting the main line via the head shunt. And then the head shunt signal can change to allow the high mech and its goods train out onto the main line. Now, one thing worth mentioning about those Train Tech head shunt signals is there is a little bit of light bleed into the top section when you've got the white and yellow. There is a little glimmer in there, but I think it's something that you can live with. And where did I get them from? Well, it's not going to be a surprise really. I got mine from DCC Train Automation and they're made by Train Tech. Oh, and very easy to install with your DC or DCC. I mean, it's a piece of cake really. It kind of works straightforward. You could wire them to a point if that's the way that sort of floats your boat. Or of course you can go down the iTrain and the train controller route and have it all automatic and all that stuff. There we go. Now, next bit embarrassing really. I need to thank someone, and I'm sorry, but I've lost the documentation. I cannot find whether we contacted each other on one of the 2 messenger accounts, WhatsApp, text, email, Gmail. I just, honestly, the whole thing's bewildering. You sent me a BDO 168. I'm very grateful, but I'm sorry I can't thank you because I can't find the links. I'm sorry. Thank you very much indeed. Do drop me a line. The other thing is Adam. Adam gave me some stuff when he what would you say, dismantled his exhibition layout, and some of the bits are here today. I mean, this ramp was from his. Also, this platform canopy made by Dapol, and they're relatively cheap. far cheaper than the ratio ones. So what I might do is buy another 4 of these and send this up the platform. I quite like that. It can be a little bit wobbly because it's got 4 legs and therefore it's prone to rock, and obviously you've got to get them straight in the first place. But Adam, you've sent me some lovely bits and bobs, and I'm sure most of them will come in handy, and as we suggested, if I didn't, the other bits would go to our Model Railway Club, but I am very grateful. Thank you very much. Right, down the other end. So with the exception of that goods area, the private goods area, whether it be Bishop's Biscuits or whatever, the track in the branch line station is sorted. Yes, it will come out as I take the board out to do some work, but it's in, we know what's happening, and it's as good as finished, and I can run trains in and out anyway. So that only leaves one last area, and that's the new freight yard, which goes above the reverse loops. Now, running around the outside of the TMD area, there's a reverse loop which actually splits into 2 reverse loops, and we can see that there's a DMU and a parcels train parked up in it. And then we've got the 2 lines that go from and to the Helix, and as you can see, they come out of the cutting there and work their way up to the top level. Now, right at the top there, I've popped in a couple of Pullman cars to show you how tight that curve is. And the reason I mentioned the tightness of this curve is because I had thought of whether to change the design here, because all this lot is going to be covered over with the raised freight yard, but of course you will lose sight then of trains exiting and going into the Helix, which is a bit of a shame. But you can see there's the tunnel mouth, and from that tunnel mouth right around to the end of this board, all these 4 tracks will be hidden to allow us to build a freight yard and a hillside around this area. But once the freight yard is in place, of course, it gives you another sort of area of interest, because now you can have an operator here receiving and dispatching trains, building up freight trains, sending them on their way, perhaps down into the Helix, or to do a couple of laps, or of course over to the branch line station. Should we build in interaction, and we can do something that I refer to as sort of shunting with purpose, so it gives you something to do rather than just turning a few knobs or letting train controller or iTrain just run your trains, you know, and you sort of oh, I see that one's in and that one's out. But you know, trying not to lose the personal interaction, the tactile feel with getting involved in your own railway. So that's the big build, and today it's early September, and so what's my timeline to get this finished? Well, I've got a couple of jobs to do. I do still sort of work part-time occasionally doing certain filming and that sort of stuff. So I would like to say that all this track work is going to be in and finished, and the hillsides built by the end of the year. And you might think September, October, November, December, that's 4 months to do, you know, pull your finger out, Charlie. But no, I think using this Celotex and getting the cuts right, and then designing the track plan, and of course supporting it, building the retaining walls and the hillside that's going to go right around the other side, because these 2 reverse loops will be permanently hidden. That's going to take a great deal of planning and to get right. And there's no doubt in my mind that I'll be laying Celotex and of course ripping it up again. I've just noticed here that I just need to put a little bit of a prop in here to stop this bending, because obviously when I lean on it. One other point that was made, someone mentioned that all the cables kind of show in these areas. Rest assured there will be a fascia panel that runs around down to about sort of, I don't know, what's that, 6 inches, a certain amount of centimetres, I don't know, what's that, 20 centimetres, around the layout, you know, to hide the sort of the wiring side and to give it a nice finish. What I normally do is I have a curtain right around the layout when it's not in use to keep the dust out. So that's my next big project. Now, I did mention briefly then about train controller and iTrain, but there is of course also JMRI. It's something I've looked at, but to be perfectly honest, it's something I really just didn't get on with. It was just a little bit sort of too in-depth for my mental capacity, let's say. But I've also had criticism because I'm not giving iTrain a fair crack of the whip, as I tend to lean towards train controller. Well, that's something I'm going to change. Now here is train controller, and as you can see across the top here we have 4 throttles, and you can just kind of dial in, pick up a loco such as R&R there, and then away you go with that particular loco. And then this is the upper level, and here is the fiddle yard. It's all quite straightforward, but of course when you look at it, it's always confusing. And here is the scenic level, and pink blocks show occupation, whereas the green ones should be vacant. And things like block 105 down here is that private goods line that I have yet to build. Here's the kind of viaduct area. Now, I said about iTrain, well, I've acquired a, what do you call it, a trial copy, and I've drawn the upper track plan, and this is where the that high-level freight yard will come out and cover over this area here. But to be honest, you would just kind of draw it here, sort of for simplicity. And I haven't really gone into the fiddle yard that deeply. As you can see, I'm only sort of a third of the way through. But it's a trial copy. I will have a go so I can give a fair comparison. But these things are complicated and they take time to learn, and you know, I'm not necessarily too old to learn new stuff, but I look at my mind as a bucket, and if you pour stuff in, then stuff comes out and I fail to remember other stuff. So I'm used to train controller, so whether I have a bite for iTrain, I know there's clearly some massive advantages to iTrain, such as the price. It's less than half price of train controller gold. These things are worth considering, so these are things I will look at in the autumn months. And whilst I touch on the autumn months, I've also got another couple of things I want to look at. Improving sound in my diesel fleet. Some of it is pretty naff. And there's been some big changes in the world of ESU, because now you can download certain British diesels and steam locomotive soundtracks for free. So should you have your own programmer, or again with JMRI, you can refresh your I don't know if it's only ESU chips, but you can certainly load new sound files in, something that I will look into in a couple of weeks' time, because this wants a bit more detail. So please hang on for that one. And if I could just ask you to vote for the channel in the Hornby magazine awards, I'd be most grateful. And during these winter months, as we come up now to the end of 2023, if there's anything you'd like me to cover, then please leave it, your suggestion, down in the comments section. And of course, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you think it's worth it. In the meantime, I'd like to thank my patrons who make it all worthwhile, the subscribers, and if you're not one, then please hit that button because it's free. I'll see you in 2 weeks, and in the meantime, a video here and here. Thanks a lot, take care. Bye-bye.